panel discussion at this point in time. And I do know that immediately after lunch, it's the most interesting time for attention. So I do ask, just give as much as you can. This one is an interesting one. The discussion is about, as Africa's banking, financial services, and insurance, that's the BFSI sectors, embrace cloud computing and blockchain technologies, the threat landscape is evolving rapidly. The panel here will explore the growing risks of ransomware and data breaches and similar exploits, and unpacks the digital defense strategies needed to secure our financial systems in the new era of innovation. So this is an interesting one, good people. We're actually going into the nuts and bolts of exploits. We will be exploring and we will be critiquing what we do against such a landscape. Let's jump into our discussion. As I had mentioned, this panel discussion has to do with BFSI, the sector itself, embracing blockchain, cloud computing, and the threat landscape, acknowledging that the threat landscape is evolving. We will be exploring cybersecurity in its many forms. We'll be looking at the cybersecurity lifecycle. We'll be talking and critiquing and inviting questions from the audience. So let me move on to my first questions for my esteemed panelists. And I'd like to start with you, good Norma. I would encourage this to be a dialogue. So by all means, Norma, first and foremost, the question I'm posing to you is, let's talk about the current threat landscape in Africa's BFSI sector. According to you, what are the most common cyber threats targeting banks, insurers, and fintechs in Africa today?
Okay. So the trend that we've been seeing lately, it's of course the ransomware. I think according to the Tech Target, we've seen an increase of about 63% within the ransomware attacks. And I think also one of the reasons that are actually causing this increase is, of course, the ever-changing of our technology, and not only that, with our world becoming more digital, lately we are actually open up to more loopholes when it comes to that. And AI, the introduction of AI is actually not making it easy for us, where it's actually allowing these threat actors to be able to generate code that is actually ransomware uplifted. So it's ransomware and phishing attacks, and we're seeing a lot of social engineering based on the fraud that are coming in with a lot of organization. I think recently Coinbase as well was recently not hacked, but there was a ransomware incident that actually asked for close to $20 million. So you can see that the trend is actually increasing by day, and it's something that I also believe that it will be increasing in still years to come. So ransomware and social engineering are the ones that are taking the space, and of course, AI as well is actually becoming comfortable in the cyberspace. So yeah. That's those two that I can think of at the moment.
Very insightful, Norma. I think, good people, this is an interesting juncture where we explore AI and the influence of AI in the cybersecurity space as well. How many of you understand and know what Worm GPT is? Hands up. I would not suggest that you go and research it now, good people. We have platforms that can actually generate on prompt exploits. You don't need to be an advanced security expert or a programming expert to know how to exploit. You can have fundamentals done by this new platform, the Worm GPT platform. So the accessibility of intellectual capital, even for our antagonists, for the dark side of technology, is growing with the advent of AI. I think let's stay on this topic, and I'd like to explore it a little bit more insofar as expanding. What do we see about the current threats? Tabani, what's your opinion on that?
Just to add on what Norma has mentioned about the attacks or the threat landscape, I want to just add a few of them to just what you just mentioned. I think phishing as well is quite prominent in these attacks, because phishing is still one of the key ways these attackers gain access to industries, and without phishing is still seen as it's working, because the intensity of the phishing attempts and the AI-driven phishing attempts is increasing day in and day out, because that is one of the best ways to get into systems via phishing. And that is why it is very important that organizations in the BFSI train their end users on phishing threats and red flags on phishing, to check how to spot these things, because one click could ruin the company's reputation. And like the previous speaker said, you can build trust very quick. It takes time to build trust, but it's broken within seconds. Same with reputation as well. One click could ruin the company's reputation.
Good people. I must admit that was also an insightful comment. We sit in a situation of quite a lot of sophistication on the cybersecurity side, but your weakest link is normally the problem. And most of the time, the weakest link is a lack of education on the social side. Social engineering is one of the easiest attack vectors for any entry into a system. And yet we have these multiple parameters of defense, all defeated because of one simple phishing attack. So great insight there, good people. I think on the basis of jumping to Fanwell, Fanwell, tell us about cloud security. Would you consider that a friend or foe? And how secure is cloud adoption within this BFSI space across Africa, in your opinion?
Yeah, I understand that the cloud adoption is actually accelerating, but with quite a number of risks. I have noted that in the cybersecurity side, mostly there are different cloud infrastructures that are exposed to the internet due to issues of misconfigurations, right? And there is poor hygiene in terms of identity management. And also talking to the other issues of lack of visibility, you might find out that an organization might be having a cloud infrastructure, but they don't have visibility to the infrastructure, which is one of the biggest risks. And also, moving with the risk, there are also threats to the cloud infrastructure. I would say the ransomware, which was mentioned before, now it's ransomware as a service, right? You don't need to be a hacker to actually have that expertise with ransomware. But of late now, we now have companies that offers ransomware as a service. So you can buy those services and get some assistance for free, right? In terms of the support that you are requesting. So you don't necessarily need to be a hacker, but of course, the biggest risk is if you are an insider threat, maybe you're targeting your employer or something like that, but these are some of the issues regarding the threats, and we can also mention things like zero-day exploits. We have also the phishing attacks, which nowadays they have improved from these generic phishing attacks that we used to know. They now using advanced one, right? There is a process called steganography, which is one of the advanced techniques which is being used by attackers out there. So steganography, you are hiding malicious content, either in an image, in a document, or in any media file that you are sharing over the internet. So the moment that you open or click that document, provided with the technology that is being used nowadays, those malicious files, they can automatically execute on their own. So that becomes the biggest risk in the cybersecurity field regarding the cloud infrastructure. And as well, why is it happening that these risks, they are on the increase? Is because of user trust. Attackers, they now understanding, they are now studying businesses to a point we want to understand. Maybe we publicize information about our clients, right, on the internet. That information can be used against you in this future world of AI, because now we are saying there is more user trust to this certain provider, and as well, financial stability. I believe most organizations, they publicize financial accounts on the internet, but that information now is used against us, right? And of course, the data, for the organizational data and the cloud infrastructure, whether you are using a different vendor, they need to understand, and they check all those things. And we need also to ensure that the internal team is being trained, because most people, they think that they know how to use cloud infrastructure, but I've discovered from my security research is that it's a gap. People, they don't know how to use the cloud infrastructure. It's exposed, and people, they use it on a daily basis, and they're exposing their information outside. And things like multi-factor authentication and as well continuous monitoring that we do on-prem is the same that we do on the cloud environment. Thank you.
Very extensive answer. Thank you, Fanwell, and very insightful as well. I have 2 questions for the audience. Audience members, show of hands. Who knows what the dark web is? And that's not when you switch off your light and go onto the internet. I see. How many of us know of someone or have been a victim of identity theft or any similar exploit, spamming and phishing? Hands up. This is interesting because it moves on to a next question, and the question is an important one. Panwell, Norma, you guys touched on it. Let's talk about the skills gap and the education of understanding these exploits. The reason for those 2 questions is to understand and engage us as experts around the table. What's the exposure and what's the education regarding these concepts? What do we know about it? Because only if you know about something can you defend against it. So let's move on, Tabani, to you. I have a question regarding the cybersecurity skills gap in Africa. In your opinion, is there a shortage of skilled cybersecurity professionals across our continent?
Yeah, thanks. I think for me, I would say that if I look at South Africa in the global context, we are somehow a bit better if you compare us to other African countries. For example, if you look at professionals that already are certified as cybersecurity professionals, you would see that out of the 280,000 people that have CISP in South Africa, we have about just over 500 coming from South Africa. And in other countries, you find that there are countries where there's only one person that has CISP in those countries. In African countries, some countries don't even have anyone that has CISP. And CISP is regarded as the golden standard of cybersecurity certification in the field. So if you look at the certificates themselves, it's not just ticking a box and saying we have someone that has CISP, but do we have someone that understands what it means to be a cybersecurity professional and also teach other people, because it's part of our, it's not necessarily forced, but we need to advance the profession and teach people within our companies. We take opportunities to basically explain things. If I would say, to answer your question shortly, I would say that the skills are quite lacking in cybersecurity in Africa as a whole. But in South Africa, I think we are making inroads. I've seen a lot of people are switching careers and moving into cybersecurity, but people have moved, but a lot of people are not certified. So you do have people that are working in cybersecurity that have an understanding, which is very important because we need someone that have skills to actually do the job. But if you look at the certification part, I think that's the part that's lacking. But we do have people, and there's still an opportunity for more people to do and be certified, but not necessarily for the sake of being certified. I think we must emphasize the point of saying you better not certified, but be cyber conscious and cyber aware than for you to be certified and have a certificate that says you understand, confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But when we look at your behavior online on the web, you are very, very reckless around that. So yeah, I think the skills gap is there. It exists. There's a lot of opportunities, but there are people that are quite equipped.
Can I add to that? Yes. Okay, cool. So I just want to add to what Tabane was saying right now. And for sure, we do have a skills gap when it comes to cybersecurity professionals. But another thing that we started noticing as organization as well, also the curriculum needs to change in the universities where these graduates comes from, right? Because also I believe that the universities needs to also be aligned on what it's being in demand in the industry, right? Because in that way or in that manner, we'll be able to sort of reach a common ground where we are able to sort of bridge the gap when it comes to this skill set. But there are things like the hackathons that are done within the organizations, there are graduate programs which are actually opening doors because we see the need of this skill set. But I just wanted to highlight that it may not only be necessary around the certifications that are required in order to be in the cyber industry, but it also starts where the curriculum starts, the universities and everything, because 13 years ago, when I was still in university, there was not even one module that spoke to security. It was all around project management, business analyst, and I still remember after I graduated, I wanted to be a business analyst. I wanted to be a project manager because those were one of the domains that were being nurtured within the university. Until I met this one executive within the networking, and he was like, no, man, we have architecture in the group, we have cybersecurity in the group. And I was like, okay, what is cybersecurity? So it starts there, from the academia space, where we need to start shifting our approach in the curriculum so that we close this gap of the skill set. Yeah.
I just wanted to add a few words.
Please go
ahead. I've noted that before, cybersecurity was an IT concern, right? But now, because of this rise in different threats and this hacking that is happening every day, it's now a boardroom discussion where the strategic or the high-level team are paying attention to cybersecurity. But before, it was a different aspect. Now there is a transition, I can say a positive transition, because now I believe most executive members, they are now appreciating. And in different organizations, you might heard that there is a budget for cybersecurity. But before, there was nothing. People, they just thought that we have these controls. That's cybersecurity. So, yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Just to put a point as well on the topic, it's quite an interesting one. To add two things. From my point of view, I'm a product of mentorship. I didn't know cybersecurity at all. I was given a chance and an opportunity, and look where I am now. So it takes a person who's willing as well, and wanting to learn something different, to be in the space of ours, because it's an ever-evolving space. And to be in this space, you need to always upskill yourself, like you were saying. You must study, because what's current today won't be current next week. You must always keep on uplifting yourself, studying, and getting to know more and more things. And I think one other thing as well that we need to do as organizations is that if we have talent, we must retain them, because talent that we have in our organization, when they are excelling, they get offers from other countries, and because they are well offers, they can't even say no to them. So we need to find a way that we retain our talent in country, so that we can also boost our cybersecurity posture as a country.
Good people of the audience, this is a multi-dimensional, factored problem. And I'm reluctant to say problem, because an exploration of the solutions is very, very important. I acknowledge that when we are talking about the infrastructure in itself needs to be accommodating for, number one, the identification of talent. Number two, assuring the nurturing of the talent. Number three, the assurance that there is continual progress within the syllabus or course material to keep up with the ever-changing and malleable landscape of technology. Definitely interesting. And of course, a willingness from all companies to invest in something which is considered important. And I would like to think that at this point in time, a lot of companies would consider cybersecurity important. All right, thank you, good panel. That was a very, very productive exchange. Let's move on to another question, and I'd like to pose this to you, good Tabiso. We're talking about education, and as much as education now works both on the human level as well as on the LLM level, let's focus on the human level for now. When we are talking about insider threats and human risk, how significant, in your opinion, is the human element in serious breaches? And I'm talking about accidental breaches as well as malicious intention breaches.
Okay. A good question. So I would say, firstly, awareness training should be given to every employee at any organization, because in that way, you're enabling them to understand cyber and cyber threats. Without the human firewall being trained, you are putting yourself at risk. We can have the best firewalls in place, IPSs, antivirus, but then if the end user isn't equipped fully, they will click on that link. They will go to that website and do whatever they want to do. So it's very important that we incorporate training as induction when people join our organization. And in terms of malicious damage, whether it's accidental or it's intentional, companies need to invest in tools that can help employees as well. Because sometimes employees do things by mistake because they aren't really trained well. So that there must be tools in place to assist and alert the security team when there is like threats like that happening, that they can go and train the employee that you cannot do this, what I do this. Because in that way, you're also teaching them to also be cyber savvy as well. And one other thing that I like about awareness training is that the way I do it at the company is that the training isn't based for the company, it's based for you as well as an individual, for you to go back home with your family. Because cyber security is everywhere, not only at the company you work for, even at home. You get SMSs every now and then about a courier company that must give you a parcel, you must pay 150 and all that. Those are small amount of money, but then if people were to click on those things, it's big money for those hackers. So the way we do training is that we make it to be personal, to individual, for them to really see the value out of it.
So I think maybe it's important that I also share some of the insights that I've seen in our own organization in terms of the training and making sure that we equip the human in all this cybersecurity chain. So obviously we always see that or hear that humans are the weakest link in this cybersecurity chain. And I would say that if one wants to attack an organization, it's very difficult to go through any of the other technical elements, you know, your firewalls, trying to do brute force attacks on your password and stuff, because there are controls that will limit your attempt and these other things. But it's much more economical and efficient if you were to voluntarily give me your credentials. So what we've done in our organization is that we've seen that over the years, our efforts in getting people trained and people to basically understand that don't click on links, you're not going to win that iPhone or all these other things that people click links for. We've seen that there was a glass ceiling where we couldn't bring our breaches below 40%. So, you know, trainings were helping us, but we still had a number of people that were clicking on links because the training that we had in terms of how it was designed, someone would go through a case study and then there's like 5 or 10 questions at the end and then we're done. We saw that traditional way was not working for us, so we did our way. We took a very radical decision last year to say we are terminating our contract with the vendor that was rolling out our cybersecurity trainings. But now what we have is something very interesting. We will do simulations, and only the people that click on links, that are the only people that are going to be trained. Because we're seeing that a lot of people are complaining. Others don't even do the trainings because they are saying, I do this thing, you know, for me, it takes away so much of my time. I understand this material, I don't click on links. So now we make it very, very targeted. And also to people that have very high access, privileged access. So we target it to those people. So I think it's very important for an organization to also see what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and tailor their trainings into their audience. In banking, obviously, everyone must do a training. I'm currently in a space where I'm not in banking, so we are able to get away with that. But in banking, certainly, it can be a different story.
Good people of the audience, there's pearls of wisdom. I think it's important for us to consider that when you're talking cybersecurity, it shouldn't be a task at work. There was a concept which was put forward by our panel where it's actually an ingrained culture that should be nurtured. It should be a deliberate, emotive intention for us to want to protect ourselves. So why not extend that within our technological assets and domain? Naturally, we lock our doors, but we don't worry about our passwords, do we? That's like a contradiction in itself. Also acknowledging the fact that when we are looking at the human element, most certainly there's a lot of galvanizing which needs to happen around that for us to reach a good point of maturity. So let's move into the next question. And this is a culminating question from all of these discussion points, where I would like us, I think between Norma and yourself, Good Fanwell, talking to cyber resilience and building a response and recovery. In context of response and recovery, how prepared, in your opinion, I'm going to hand it to you first, Norma, are African BFSI institutions to respond to a ransomware attack or data breach? We see a lot of articles online which naturally raise concerns. So what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah. So the level of preparedness, I don't think there's any organization I believe will ever get into a point where I have arrived, I know it all, right? But what I've noticed now is that many organizations are starting to pay more attention into their SOC capabilities to be able to identify these threats when they come through. But when it comes to the preparedness, I don't think we'll ever get to that point. But the only thing that we can do is to ensure that our attack surface is more secure, always monitoring our controls, ensuring that we conduct the simulation, as Tobani has said, and not just conducting them, but to go back and actually review them and to see where are we actually going wrong. So the level of preparedness, I think there's still a journey that needs to be walked by many organizations, and it's going to be a tough one because, like I said, as the world continues to digitize, to evolve and everything, there's new threats that are being discovered. So I don't think we'll ever get into that point with AI as well, again, making it not easy for us to actually be able to detect these things. So I also think it's a journey that we'll continue to work on, but with the help of the NIST frameworks and everything, we can only protect ourselves, but I don't think we'll get into a point where everything is 100%.
Yes, okay. To add on that, I've noticed that in different organizations, right, they do, especially banks, we do DR simulations.
Yeah.
We do regular breach and attack simulations. We need to test our controls, right? In case there's a breach, how are we going to respond? How are we going to mitigate the risk, to mitigate the attack, right, in the environment? So I think we need to continuously doing such activities to make sure that our environment is strengthened. Of course, in Zim, we do have a requirement from the regulator and the regulatory authority that says every bank needs to do at least these VAPTs or security assessments from with an independent assessor so that they have that knowledge of what exactly is happening within the bank's infrastructure. So it's a requirement, and we need to continuously test because these threats, they are evolving. We now have intelligence from those that we used to think. Ransomware has evolved. We now have advanced phishing attacks. So the process goes on and on and on and on.
And also just to add on that, I think also organizations needs to be intentional on their continuous monitoring, because another thing that I've started to notice that it's becoming a habit. Every time there's auditors in the room, we will only perform that activity because there's auditors. The minute the auditors are gone, we go back and relax. So until we build that discipline, we build that momentum with continuous improvement, checking our controls and everything, I think that's the only way that will sort of put us ahead. Not ahead, but try to catch up with these guys, unlike being ad hoc. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is also quite an intriguing position and a correct position. I think the panel has shared a lot of pearls of wisdom, and the core of this has to do with, it's an element of constant evolution, both on the person side, on the company side. It's an awareness to see that when it comes to protecting our assets, this is something we have to do deliberately, with intent, with the correct level of expertise and focus. I'm going to now just ask for a round robin from your side, Fanwell, down the whole row of our speakers, just as any concluding notes. Fanwell, over to you.
Okay. Thank you. So to conclude my concluding remarks, I would just wanted to say I forgot to add something from the issue of human error. There's just a few words. I've noted that currently the most targeted users in an organization is the executive team. Of late, we understand that the executive team is the one that deals with the strategic initiatives for the organization. And 80% of their time, they are busy with meetings and they do not have time to attend to the internal cybersecurity training which happens within the organization. So from my research that I have done, I've noted that attackers now, they are using OSINT, what we call open source intelligence, to gather information about the executive team, right, within a certain organization, so that they can use that information to manipulate or to, at times, executive members, they might fail to pay attention to emails. Probably they may just say, let me open this email, they click a malicious document, and probably the organization is compromised. So with my parting remarks, I would say, I wanted to say, there are only two types of companies that exist in this world, those that are hacked and those that will be. So let's be vigilant and make sure that we always try to stay ahead. I understand organizations now, they are focusing more in defensive security than offensive security, because we want to defend our organization and to ensure that we stay resilient on these intelligent threats. Thank you.
I think for me, in closing, I would say that from the topics that we discussed today, from cloud, if you look at what makes cloud to be insecure, more than 99% of the time, it's because of the client, them misconfiguring the cloud. That's what makes it insecure. If you look at data breaches, the reason why the defense in depth fail and things like zero trust and all these fancy architectures that we are building is because people do not jump over the fence. They come through the front door because users give them the credentials to come through the front door. So I think let's focus our energies on creating an environment where users are feeling safe to report things when they see things that are malicious. They're able to ask someone in a very friendly environment where they don't feel that, I'm going to be a target if I say that I click this thing, because most of the attacks, they don't just happen. Someone sits on the network, they observe over days, sometimes more than 100 days. They're observing who approves, who captures. But if someone have a safe space and a safety net to say, look, I clicked on this thing, something funny happened on my machine, can you help me? Can you investigate? Maybe we can be able to identify that someone is in our network, because sometimes the EDR will fail. So those are some of the things that we need to do, not only to educate our users and our executives, but also to create a safe space for people to come and say, maybe there's something that I clicked that I shouldn't have clicked, so that the investigation can start immediately, and then we can avoid a breach.
My closing remarks, just a few items. I think most companies rely on third parties a lot. So we need to look at third-party assessments when you are doing your onboarding of them, do thorough assessment on them, and also I think we need to involve them as well in our simulation test for when we are doing cyber simulations so that we can see that everyone is aligned and knows their role in a case where there will be a breach. So it's very important that we also continuously monitor them and check if they are keeping to their word as well, because most threats or breaches come from them, and because they have access to your network, it will move from them into you as well. So we need to keep them also accountable as well in that space. I think it's also important that we have cyber insurance as organizations, because that will also assist us as well should a time of a breach come, because some policies do offer individuals for forensics, depending on which one you go for. Give you someone to be there with you and guide you from PR to investigation through the whole loop of your cyber threat. And I think what we need to do as well is when we are doing those assessments or those onboarding cyber insurance questionnaires, be truthful to them, because should a breach happen and you said yes to a thing that isn't there, they won't pay you out. So be as honest as you can when you are answering those questions. And I think lastly, from my point of view, that we have to know our crown jewels, know which assets we need to protect, know which ones that if this system goes down, the company will not function. But if this one goes down, it can function for a day or two. So you must know which assets are your crown jewel in your organization and protect them more than the other ones in the estate.
On my side, I think you mentioned a very valid point around the third parties, because you might be safe as your own organization, but whoever that you are integrating with might be the weakest link. I think 2 days ago, TransUnion was actually breached, which shows that it's evident that our third parties needs to be our focal point. And another thing that I wanted to add, it's around policies around it as well as standards. We route these beautiful policies as well as standards, but as much as they are good for our governance structure, but we must also get into a point where we actually test that these processes, they actually work, so that we don't only have a document, but we actually ensure that our processes do work. And my parting words are, cybersecurity is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and as we continue to evolve, so do I as human beings, we must also evolve.
Good people of the panel, great closing remarks. I have 2 remarks for our good audience, and I think one of them segues into our title regarding cryptocurrency. That's a very packed topic, and I want to zone in on the basis that the securitization of crypto, on the basis of its distributed ledger, on the basis of how it is actually shared insofar as transactional landscapes are concerned, the mining as well as the inter-crypto banking, pretty secure until you realize that the most vulnerable point of that transaction is the people themselves. We've seen a lot of exploits within the forensics field where cryptocurrency has been even used to facilitate fraudulent transactions. We've seen a lot of opportunities where syndicates have taken advantage of certain people and utilized their lack of knowledge, not because of the lack of security of the distributed ledger, but because of the vulnerability and the lack of education of the endpoint. And now I know I isolated cryptocurrency and the entire distributed ledger as an example, but the point speaks to what the good panel is saying. Doesn't matter how sophisticated we are, we have to look and identify our weakest link within an organization, and we have to galvanize that. We have to ensure that we invest, we have to show we capacitate and make our people knowledgeable about the whole concept of cybersecurity. So evolve and adapt is very, very important for both person and professional and companies alike. I'm now going to open the floor to questions from the good audience. Please go ahead.
I can answer your question to do with that cryptocurrency. With the blockchain, you got the hashing process where if you process a transaction, that transaction is processed from the private key of that owner of the wallet, gets encrypted as a hash number, so whatever's on that block is just encrypted as a hash number, so you don't actually know what's on that block. then the current hash, the previous hash becomes the next hash, which is the current hash when the new block is opened, and all the miners that's got to authorize that transaction gets a copy of that transaction. So they can't change it, otherwise the hash number changes. But the only beauty with decentralized, the miners aren't known on the blockchain. Where if it's centralized, the miners are known. And that's where you can get fraud. But the decentralized is almost impossible to fraud.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for that insight. And I must acknowledge that when you are talking about mining pooling, the allocation of pools on the basis of the cryptographic hashes, agreed. Private keys and the securitization is good. But it still galvanizes our point, and it highlights our point that our weakest point is our people and the lack of education.
Yeah, that's education.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And also, if you don't know what you're doing, it's like you invest in something you don't even know what you're doing. Same sort of scenario.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, panel member.
Sure.
Any more questions amongst our esteemed audience?
Can I add one more thing
Yes,
about the
yes,
hashing
please.
process? I just thought of it now. When the transactions are processed, let's say I send 10 Ripple to somebody else via my wallet. So my wallet will depict that I'm minus 10 Ripple, for example. And there's 10 miners on that system, on the Ripple system. I know Ripple's pre-mined, but I'm just going to give you a simple example. Then when the miners will get a copy of 10 miners will each get a copy of their transaction. That transaction will be encrypted from the timestamp, which is a cryptographic signature from my private key, which is encrypted from my phone or device. And my phone knows that that entry belongs to me via the hashing process. Now, if I put minus 10 and I get a hash number 123, and now all the miners hash will get a number 123, will all be the same hash number. But if let's say one miner tries and changes it, suddenly the link will break because the hash number will change to 127 instead of 123, and they all get the change, the same change of hash number that's been changed. And the miners won't authorize it because they'll see something's wrong and it actually breaks the block away from the link. So there's basically a bottleneck. So their interest is to authorize, because if they don't authorize, the algorithm will pick up. If they do something wrong, they'll be kicked off as a miner on that blockchain. So the beauty of it is very, I don't say it won't happen, but it's very, very seldom that sort of fraud will happen. Mostly fraud that occurs in crypto is to do with exchanges and to do with have you heard of mirror trading? The reason why people lost money in mirror trading, because they were investing on a wallet from their phone. They thought they were depositing their coins with Luna, and mirror trading was an admin house, and they had access to your private key, your seed phrase. So they could go in there the night before and move your currency across without you even knowing. You could still log in, and they could log in because they had your secret phrase. And that's why I say to people, they've got to understand the process of how now my words are gone. How the encryption, how the crypto signature works on a blockchain. Otherwise, that's why people get caught out, and then they say it's a scam. It's not a scam. It's because you invest in somebody that's going to actually take your coin, you don't even know it. It's like giving your passwords from your online banking to somebody else. Same sort of scenario. Very similar to that.
Thank you for that insight. I think, good people, you wanted to add something to that, my good...
No, it's just a question that I wanted to ask.
Yes.
To Tektron, do we have any team from Tektron? Okay, thank you. I have one question. I noted that from the brochure, there is secure cloud. You provide secure cloud solutions to clients. So I just wanted to understand, let's say there's a client, maybe they are looking forward to acquire a cloud environment. Are you the one who configure the environment for them, or you just provide the tenant only for their use?
Yeah, so we basically do the whole configuration. We set up everything for them as well. So we take them through the whole process, set up the whole security figures, deploy all the security configurations. We manage everything for them.
Okay, so in the event that there is a breach, you work hand in hand, and you're also responsible for.
Yeah, obviously, basically. So they're paying us, obviously, to protect them. But touch wood, since we've started in 2004, we've never been breached yet. But I mean, like you guys said, no matter if you're the best in the industry, I mean, everyone is still prone to be attacked. And if I can add to all of everything all of you said is, so my thing is, what I always tell the customers is, you are as strong as your weakest link. You can't just think, you have the best firewall, you have the best IT team behind you. If you're not gonna, obviously, do user awareness training to the employees, then it's definitely not gonna work.
Oh, thank you.
Great.
Yes.
Great. I think, good people, we always come back to some commonalities, which means there's a meeting of minds amongst the audience and the panel members. Great stuff. I'm going to leave a parting observation. As part of the international cybersecurity, cyber defense, and forensics teams that we have deployed, in 2011, we had 11 categories of exploits. In the current day and age, we have over 274 exploit categories, where all of that actually cascades down into even further subcategories of exploits. That's a generic statement, but what that actually means is that it is more important than ever that we continually educate, adapt, and evolve, and ensure that we are protecting our assets with the correct partners. Thank you, good people. That brings us to the end of the panel.